Welcome back. I'm so incredibly excited to welcome you to another deep dive. We have something truly special on the table today.
We really do.
Yeah, we're looking at a stack of translated excerpts from honestly a masterpiece of Hindi literature. It's this collection called Mansarovar Part 2.
Right, by the legendary Munshi Premchand.
Exactly, Munshi Premchand. But, our mission today isn't just to recount some old stories from the past. We're really going to unpack his masterful, just absolutely timeless psychological portraits. The goal here is to discover exactly how these texts dissect human nature, societal hypocrisy, and the deeply ingrained struggles of the marginalized.
Yeah, and to set the stage for you, it is crucial to understand the overarching context we're walking into here.
Right.
These stories are set in early 20th century India, so we're looking at a society that's heavily bound by strict traditions, intricate caste systems, and very rigid gender roles.
Very rich.
Right. Yet as we go through these notes, the emotional truths that Premchand captures about gender dynamics, class struggles, and morality, they are astonishingly relevant today. You'll find that the human psychology he describes hasn't really changed at all.
No, not at all.
We might have, different technology now, but the way humans exploit, love, and justify their actions is remarkably identical.
It's so true. And to really grasp how Premchand dissects society, we have to start with the most intimate space of all, which is marriage.
Absolutely.
I was looking through the notes on this one story about a young woman named Kusum, and it completely shatters your heart. The entire narrative is told through a series of one-sided letters that Kusum is writing to her husband.
Just devastating to read.
It is, because they've been married for a year, but right after their wedding, he just completely ignores her. He refuses to speak to her. He won't even look at her. She's essentially ghosted, but she's trapped in the exact same house.
Yeah, she can't escape it.
Right. And Kusum initially takes all the blame upon herself. In these early letters, she's begging for just a single drop of affection. She asks him, quite literally, what crime she committed to be treated worse than the dust under his feet. She tells him she'd willingly drink poison if he just handed it to her, because his silence is worse than death. She views him as this flawless deity and herself as a flawed, unworthy servant.
What's fascinating here is Kusum's psychological evolution throughout the story.
Yeah.
Because she starts in this place of complete, almost desperate subservience. Society has deeply conditioned her from birth to believe that her entire worth is tethered to her husband's approval.
That without it, she's nothing.
Exactly. Without it, she feels she has no reason to exist.
Yeah.
But as her letters go completely unanswered month after month, something fundamental shifts in her psyche. The sheer, unrelenting cruelty of his silence actually ends up breaking the spell of the societal conditioning.
Because she just hits rock bottom, right? She realizes there's nothing left to lose.
Precisely. She is forced to look at her situation objectively. She begins to realize the systemic reality of her existence.
Oh, the part about the chains.
Yes. In one of her later letters, she references reading about the ancient practice of men physically capturing women as property, literally putting them in chains.
Wow.
And she has this profound awakening where she realizes that her modern marriage, with all its supposedly respectable rituals, isn't much different. It's just a psychological chain instead of an iron one.
It's just brilliant, and she completely flips the script.
She really does.
By her final letter, she's actually found her self-worth. She tells him to take back all the jewelry, all the expensive clothes he gave her. She just packs them all away in a box and tells him she wants absolutely nothing to do with his wealth or his conditional status.
It's a total rejection of the terms he set.
Yeah. And later, when he supposedly tries to reconcile, she refuses. She finds her own independence. But here's where it gets really interesting. Premchand doesn't just critique this traditional subservient model of marriage. He also explores the exact opposite end of the spectrum with another story.
Right, the story of Miss Padma.
Yes, Miss Padma. Reading the notes on this one, I was honestly surprised. She is highly educated. She is a modern, independent, professional woman. She completely rejects the idea of traditional marriage, viewing it as a patriarchal trap.
Which is a very radical stance for the setting.
So radical, it almost reads like a 21st century script. Instead, she enters into a free relationship with a very handsome, intellectual man named Professor Prasad. They live together without being married, and because she's a successful lawyer earning a lot of money, she essentially funds his lavish lifestyle.
She's paying for everything.
Everything. His car, his clothes, his drinking habits. She really thinks she has outsmarted the patriarchal system. But wait, does Premchand just write this to punish her for being independent? Is he saying women shouldn't try to break the mold?
Not at all. If we connect this to the bigger picture, Premchand is offering an incredibly nuanced view of human vulnerability. He isn't punishing her independence. He is exposing a totally different kind of exploitation.
How so?
While Padma believes that by rejecting traditional legal subjugation, she's safe. She thinks she holds the power because she holds the purse strings. But she is still betrayed.
Right.
Prasad exploits her wealth entirely. She saves up 20,000 rupees for their future child, and right after she gives birth, Prasad completely reveals his true colors. He steals the money and runs off to England with one of his young students.
Leaving her completely devastated with a newborn baby, she ends up throwing his picture on the ground and trampling it, burning all his remaining belongings. It's such a visceral, raw reaction.
It's deeply painful to read, and the brilliant insight from Premchand here is that the label on your relationship doesn't protect you. Neither traditional submissiveness, like Kusum's, nor naive free love, like Padma's, protects you from human selfishness and betrayal.
It's about the people, not the institution.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The institutional structures are deeply flawed, yes, but the core issue Premchand points to is the exploitation of trust. Padma thought her modern arrangement made her an equal partner, but Prasad still treated her as a resource to be used and discarded when something seemingly better came along.
It's a harsh reality check. It really makes you think about how we define the rules of our own relationships. And that questioning of societal rules naturally brings us to how Premchand redefines morality itself.
Yes, the story of Balak.
Yes, Balak, or the child.
Yeah,
We're introduced to a man named Gangu. Now, Gangu is a Brahmin, which is the highest caste, but he works as a servant for the narrator of the story.
which is already an interesting dynamic.
Right. But he is incredibly proud. He refuses to bow to his employer, he absolutely won't fan him in the heat, and he demands to be treated with dignity. And then he does something that shocks the entire community. He decides to marry a woman named Gumti.
And Gumti is a widow.
Yes, a widow who has been married and separated several times. In this society, the whole village shuns her. They actively label her as a woman of loose morals.
And everyone in the village, including Gangu's employer, expects this marriage to fail spectacularly. The societal assumption is that a proud Brahmin and a shunned widow cannot possibly build a respectable life together. It violates all their rules of purity and hierarchy.
Exactly. And then comes the major plot twist. Just a few months after they marry, Gomti runs away. Gangu is heartbroken. But then a short time later, he receives word that she has had a baby.
Which everyone knows means.
Right. Timeline-wise, it is physically impossible for the baby to be Gangu's. The entire village is laughing at him. As a reader, you are almost waiting for him to explode with anger, to reject her and protect his injured pride.
Because that is exactly what society demands in that moment. Society expects rage. It demands that a man protect his lineage and his ego above all else.
But instead of anger, Gangu searches for her everywhere. He finally finds her at a women's shelter, brings her back, and accepts the baby with overwhelming joy. He holds the child and calls it a pure gift from God. When I read that, I was floored. It is so unexpected.
This is a stunning moment in the text, and we really have to pause and ask why this matters so much. Gangu, despite being poor and illiterate, exhibits a radical, unconditional love that makes the educated, wealthy characters look completely morally bankrupt.
Yeah, they look so petty in comparison.
Exactly. Society is obsessed with biological lineage, with caste purity, with controlling women's bodies to maintain social standing. Gangu completely upends this entire framework.
He does.
When his employer questions him, Gangu tells him that if you plant a field and someone else harvests it, you don't burn the field down. It's a simple agricultural metaphor, but it represents a profound moral philosophy. He defies society's rigid, hypocritical definitions of morality and proves that true nobility comes from the heart, not from bloodlines or societal rules.
It makes you want to cheer for him. It is such a quiet but massive rebellion. But Premchand doesn't let us stay comfortable for long.
No, he doesn't.
As uplifting as Gangu's story is, we have to look at a much darker exploration of caste and class. There's a story called Doodh Ka Daam, which translates to the price of milk.
This one is incredibly tough.
It really is. It recounts the life of a woman named Pungi. She is an untouchable sweeper, forced onto the absolute lowest rung of the social ladder. But she gets hired as a wet nurse by a wealthy landlord to feed his infant son, Suresh. So Kuhungi literally gives her life-sustaining milk to this wealthy child, while her own biological son, Mangal, is neglected and malnourished.
It's a devastating setup that exposes the utter hypocrisy of the caste system. Pungi is deemed untouchable by this family, yet her milk is perfectly acceptable when it serves their needs.
It's so transactional.
Completely.
Yeah.
She's revered, but only as long as she is biologically useful to the wealthy. Once her milk dries up, the illusion of respect vanishes. She's pushed back to the margins and she eventually dies a tragic, preventable death.
And the true tragedy unfolds with her son, Mangal. You would think the wealthy family would feel some profound sense of debt or gratitude to the child of the woman who kept their own son alive.
You would hope so.
But instead, Mangal is treated worse than a stray animal by the very family his mother sustained. There's a specific scene that is just burned into my memory.
The scene with the food.
Yes. Mangal is starving, waiting outside the wealthy landlord's house for leftover food. The healthy, robust son, Suresh, the one Mangal's mother breastfed, is playing nearby, completely ignoring him. Finally, someone from the house just dumps a leaf plate of dirty, half-eaten scraps on the ground.
It's horrific.
And Mangal literally has to share these leftovers with the neighborhood dog, Tommy. Mangal pets the dog and says, "People say no one can repay the price of milk, and this is the price I am getting." He realizes that this utter degradation is the ultimate price paid for his mother's sacrifice.
This raises an important question for all of us about how we view privilege. Premchand is forcing the reader to look straight at unseen systemic exploitation. The horrific part isn't just that Mangal is starving, it's the psychology of the wealthy family.
They don't even see what they're doing wrong.
Exactly. They aren't acting like cartoon villains. They genuinely believe they are righteous and generous just for throwing scraps to this boy. They are completely, willfully blind to the fact that their son's health, their happiness, and their entire lineage is built entirely on the sacrifice of this boy's mother.
It's a chilling exploration of how privilege completely blinds people to their own cruelty.
It really is. It asks you to reflect on whose labor, whose milk, is quietly sustaining the comforts of the upper classes today, and how those laborers are treated once they are no longer useful.
Okay, let's unpack this further, because that theme of unseen consequences and the psychology of the oppressor leads perfectly into another story about greed and guilt. Let's look at the story, Chamatkar, or the miracle.
Oh, this is a fascinating study of conscience.
It really is. We meet a man named Prakash. He is poor, struggling, and deeply resentful of the wealthy people around him. He gets an opportunity to manage the wedding preparations for his wealthy benefactor, Thakur Sahib.
A lot of temptation there.
So much temptation. Prakash has thousands of rupees passing through his hands, and driven by this intoxicating mix of bitterness and greed, he steals 5,000 rupees worth of the wedding jewelry. And he justifies it to himself. He rationalizes that the rich have too much anyway, and that he deserves a piece of the pie.
Yes, his internal monologue is a masterclass in rationalization. He convinces himself that his theft is almost an act of social justice. But the psychological twist Premchand introduces next is brilliant.
I didn't see it coming at all.
Sometime later, a highly coveted job opens up at a bank for Prakash. It's a ticket out of poverty. But the bank requires a massive 10,000 rupee financial guarantee, which he obviously doesn't have. And who steps in to provide that guarantee? Thakur Sahib, the very man Prakash robbed. Thakur Sahib trusts Prakash completely and puts his own massive fortune on the line to secure Prakash's future.
And that act of pure trust just absolutely crushes Prakash. I expected him to just take the job and laugh all the way to the bank, but the guilt becomes an unbearable physical weight.
It eats him alive.
It really does. The law didn't catch him, the police didn't punish him, but his own conscience tears him apart. He cannot live with the fact that he betrayed someone who showed him such immense, unearned kindness. So he comes up with this elaborate, almost comical scheme.
The fake miracle.
Right. He fakes a religious miracle ritual to secretly return the stolen jewelry to Thakur Sahib's house, making it look like the gods magically brought it back to reward Thakur Sahib's goodness.
Look at the psychology of that moment. Premchand is contrasting punitive justice with restorative justice. Prakash wasn't reformed by the fear of the law failed to catch him. He was reformed by grace.
That's a great way to put it.
Premchand illustrates that true remorse cannot be forced by punishment or the threat of prison. It's awakened by unmerited kindness. Kindness, in this context, becomes a far more effective punishment than revenge because it bypasses the perpetrator's defensive justifications and forces them to look in the mirror and confront their own moral failure.
It is such a powerful psychological insight. It really makes you wonder how often we try to punish people into better behavior when maybe a different approach is needed.
Absolutely.
Before we wrap up our analysis of these notes, I want to briefly touch upon one of Premchand's most famous stories. It's actually an animal fable called Du Bailon Ki Katha, or The Tale of Two
A
Oxen.
classic.
It follows two oxen, Heera and Moti. They have this silent, incredibly deep bond. They speak to each other just by shifting their weight or bumping their horns. They are sold to an abusive master who starves and beats them, so they escape.
But their freedom is short-lived.
Very short-lived. Their journey out in the world is brutal. At one point, they're locked in a terrifying animal pound, a kanji house, where animals are just left to die of starvation. They break out of that only to be bought by a terrifying butcher, the Dadayal. Yet through it all, they fight back. And eventually, they fight off the butcher and make it all the way back to their original, loving home.
While it is ostensibly a story about animals, the oxen clearly represent passive resistance and the resilience of the marginalized. If we connect this to the broader themes of Premchand's work we've discussed today, Heera and Moti are the ultimate oppressed figures.
Literally beasts of burden.
Exactly. They endure horrific beatings, starvation, and extreme exploitation by the humans around them. But their spirit of rebellion, and more importantly, their unwavering loyalty to each other, remains unbroken.
They never turn on each other.
Never. Even when one is trapped and could easily be killed, the other refuses to run away and save himself. They demonstrate a moral fortitude, a deep sense of loyalty and ethics that is entirely absent in the human oppressors.
So what does this all mean? We've covered a lot of ground today. We've looked at letters from a wife breaking out of psychological chains, the betrayal of a modern intellectual who thought her money made her safe, a Brahmin servant who defies society to unconditionally love a child, an untouchable boy sharing scraps with a dog, a thief reformed by a miracle of conscience, and two oxen fighting for their lives.
It's a vast spectrum of society.
It is, and Premchand wrote these stories in the 1920s and 30s, but this world perfectly mirrors our own. These stories challenge us to look at the power dynamics in our own lives, in our romantic relationships, in our workplaces, and in our societal structures.
That is the crucial takeaway here. Across all these diverse sources, a very clear, unsettling pattern emerges. The people of the highest social status, the wealthy landlords, the educated professors, the upper castes, are frequently revealed to be the most morally bankrupt.
Yeah.
They use their status to shield their cruelty and justify their exploitation. Meanwhile, the truly noble, heroic acts come from the margins. An illiterate servant like Gangu, an oppressed wife who finds her voice like Kusum, or even a pair of loyal oxen.
It really flips the script on who we should be looking up to.
It does. And I want to leave you with a final thought that builds on this, especially thinking about Pungi, the wet nurse, and the idea of unseen labor. We have talked a lot about class and caste in the early 20th century, but I want you to think about how this translates to our modern digital age.
Oh, that's interesting.
Today, we have massive algorithms and gig economies that make the labor sustaining our modern lifestyles completely invisible. If Premchand were writing today, who would be his marginalized characters? The delivery drivers working 14-hour shifts, the overseas data moderators scrubbing traumatic content from our social media feeds for pennies. Next time you tap a button on your phone and a luxury just magically appears at your door, I want you to ask yourself, if you look closely at your own community today, who are the unseen heroes showing quiet nobility? And who is hiding moral bankruptcy behind a mask of high social status? Whose invisible price of milk are you really paying?
What a profound and haunting question to end on. It really makes you rethink the hidden costs of our convenience. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the brilliant mind of Munshi Premchand. Keep observing the world around you, keep questioning those hidden power dynamics, and we will catch you next time.